please subscribe to my channel. This is the primordial wave of consciousness, right? So I am the wisdomizer, and we have been discussing the African influence on classical civilization. And when we talk about classical civilization, we are talking about Greece. Why is Greece important to us? It's important to us because we have been taught in school that Greek people are the bringers of light, of knowledge, of education, and particularly the African people have been written out of history. That when you read books of history written in the modern time, some of this garbage, some of this nonsense being taught in schools, being perpetuated in school curriculum, you're going to see this fallacy that Africa has not contributed any significant thing to history of humanity by the way of medicine, science, philosophy, geography, name them, that Africans are lazy and they don't have knowledge, they don't have information. They are takers and they're not givers. And that is why we got to do the research. We got to do the research to try to explain some of these misinformations that are propagating in the school system. As I say, some of this nonsense find themselves in textbooks that children read and students read. And if you don't know, you don't know. If you don't know, you go to school, you sit down, and the professors say, shut up and listen to what I'm telling you and don't ask a question. And you don't even know you can ask a question, right? We're here to awaken that critical part of you, that when somebody is telling you that something that doesn't add up, you can say, wait a minute, that is not true. That is what it means to have your own mind. You got to be some kind of rebel. And it's not fun to be rebel. It's not fun sometimes, but sometimes you got to do it, you know? So we are talking about mythology today. Mythology, we're going to make this piece very short, very concise. We're talking about mythology. And somebody will say, why do you need to talk about mythology when you are discussing African classical Greece and African influence on classical Greece? Well, when we take time to study classical literatures, Greek literatures, we are going to find out that Greece has a lot of mythological systems. And what we have found out is that Greek mythos is highly embedded, highly coded with African information, right? With African information. In essence, if you look into Greek mythologies, fairy tales, what you might consider phantasmagoric fantasies, you know, like fantasies. If you look into Greek mythologies, you're going to see that they alluded to, in a very subliminal, in a very covert way, they express the fact that Africa was central in the formation of the idea of Greece, and Greek culture, and Greek civilization, and Greek philosophy, and Greek sciences, right? Why mythology is very important is because to understand the people, you got to you got to go first to their mythologies. To understand any group of people, to understand any culture, you need to ask questions. You need to study the myth, the stories they told about themselves. And sometimes these stories are in forms of what we call fairy tales. And that is why a lot of people don't pay attention to mythologies, right? But the world runs on mythologies. When you watch movies, when you um, participate in drama, in songs, people express themselves, their history, where they came from in mythologies. And that is why we have found out that in studying classical Greek literatures that they said a lot about Africa, and that is what we're here to decode. To decode. When they encode it, we decode it. Like that. When they encode it, we decode it. And another reason why mythology is very important is because it is the realm of dream. It is the realm of the unconscious. So people are telling this story in some kind of fairy tales, but then these stories are coming from their deepest collective subconscious. And that is part of what we are going to be discussing today. As I said, this piece right here is going to be very, very short. Very short. We are not going to go long, right? So this has been the series. This particular wisdomization series is looking at influence of Greece, Africa on ancient Greece, right? Mythology, Greek mythology. When you watch Western movies, is full of Greek mythologies. And some of us who have taken time to study and to learn some of this ancient information, you are going to see that even some of these movies you're seeing is taken from African stories, right? The stories of Osiris, the stories of Set, the stories of Horus, right? But then we don't know about it because we seem to have written out of history, and we are just following. We're following. Everybody's going and we are following them. No, I'm the one who said, no, I don't want to follow you. I want to go my own way. Now, this gentleman here, his name is Carl Jung. If you have studied psychology, you know his name pops out all over the place, right? He's a Swiss psychologist, one of my favorite. He's very brilliant. He's very brilliant. And his brilliancy lies on the fact that he deviated a little bit from the mechanistic psychoanalytic theories of his time. You know, he studied, what's his name? Sigmund Freud. And Sigmund Freud, he has been called the father of psychoanalytic, right? Psychoanalytic, dealing with the unconscious. To change people, to reprogram people, we have to go to their unconscious realm, to their unconscious mind. And that is what Sigmund Freud and his psychoanalytic theory was proposing. But this guy, even though he was a little bit of the student of psychoanalysis or psychoanalytic theories of Sigmund Freud, he deviated a little bit. And his deviation is what I like. I don't like people who follow everybody. I like, I'm kind of a rebel. I'm kind of a rebellious. I want to be my own mind. So what did he do? And why are we talking about a Swiss psychologist when we are discussing Africa and Greece, right? What has somebody from Switzerland has to do this with the whole point we're trying to make here? Of course, he is very important because of what he said about mythology, because I'm trying to make the point that mythology is something we cannot ignore. We have to decode mythologies. Mythology is like a computer code, right? And that computer code, if you can crack the code, you understand the people's subconscious mind. You can understand the people's history, right? And as I said, why I like this man is because he invested much of his energy and time and research into looking at the subconscious mind of people and a group of people and culture and civilization, but he deviated from the mechanical approach of psychoanalysis of Sigmund Freud and the way he did this was by taking a step further and looking at the spiritual side, the transcendental side, the higher, what do you call it? The higher existence, the higher level of spirituality in man and in woman. So he did not just talk psychology, he talked deep, understanding people. And he wasn't like any other European, Western materialistic thinker, right? Most European writers and scientists tend to be very materialistic. When I say materialistic, I'm not talking of people buying material things. I'm talking of materialism, the concept, the very concept that life has no purpose. Life has no spiritual value. Life ends here. Once we die, we're gone. There's no higher level of existence. This guy studied things like dreams and symbolisms and simulacras and imageries, right? And he was able to explain not just individual psychology, but a group psychology. He is deep. So if you can like to read, find his book, read it, because these are the people that when you understand how they think, you begin to understand yourself and the world, right? And other people as well. So why are mythologies important? Myths represent universal archetypes. And if you study him, he talks a lot about archetypes. And what are archetypes? Archetypes are universal symbols. Universal symbols. When you tell a story in your culture, when you narrate a mythological story about your people, oftentimes you use archetypes, symbols, animals, what we call zoomorphism, zoo like animal, zoomorphism. You employ animal characters to depict certain things that happen to people. These are universal symbols, symbolisms. And this gentleman here understood that when people use these archetypes in representing reality, they are tapping from the deepest unconscious realm, right? That's what he said. So there's something he described as the collective unconscious. What is collective unconscious? And according to this gentleman, Carl Jung, he said the collective unconscious is that part of the unconscious mind shaped by all humanity. It is like, this is not his quote. So this is just, I make this note to help me to visualize what I'm talking about. So you may not pay attention to this note because sometimes I don't proofread it. It has a lot of grammatical errors. So the collective unconscious is like a universal data bank of ancestral memory. The universal data bank of ancestral memory, I need you to imagine a cosmos bank. And that bank is full of memory dating thousands of years. And that is why when you listen to people who are book writers or people who sing songs and can compose songs, people who compose songs, they say, I have to take a vacation, I have to walk in the nature. And then they begin to have muse, communicate to them, what they call muse. And if you're a writer and you see people say, I have a writer's block, somebody who is writing, and suddenly you just feel like empty. Maybe you're writing a book, or a novel, or whatever that is 1,000 pages, and you just completed like 900 pages. You have more to write, but like information is gone, is disappeared. Because people are tapping into the realm, sort of the universal mind, the collective mind, People who sing songs will say, well, I was just sleeping and the song was coming to my mind, right? I was just walking, I was just doing something, I was having this song, and when they write this song, it becomes one of the best songs in the world, right? Because there's something called the unconscious, collective unconscious mind. Individuals has consciousness, subconsciousness, and unconsciousness, and so is a group of people. They also possess this dynamic ancestral memory like a bank. So individual minds can tap. Don't mind my writing, not talk. Individual minds can tap into the collective unconscious through dreams, images, symbolisms, and mythologies. And that's why we cannot ignore mythologies. We can't ignore mythologies. People who ignore mythologies are people who are ignorant. The first thing you ask to understand a particular people, ask first of all, what is their mythology? You get it? For Jung, mythologies and dreams are expressions of the collective unconscious mind. And that's why we are linking this to ancient Greece. Why? Because ancient Greece was obsession. They had obsession with mythologies and they connected their mythologies to Africa. That's the point we're trying to establish, saying all these things. Ancient Greece has this fanatical obsession with Africa. They included African personages, personalities, ancient African heroes in their mythologies. And if, as we have said in the previous video, the Greek people claimed autochthonous origin. Autochthonous means no one colonized them. They just wake up one day and learn how to read and write and became civilized. If autochthonous model is true, let's assume that autochthonous model of Greek civilization is true. Then why are the Greek people so obsessed with ancient Egypt, with ancient Africa, that most of their major essential mythologies are encoded with African imageries and symbolisms, right? Because there is something in their ancestral collective memory that remembers that they were colonized, they were civilized. Let me use the word civilized by Africans. Do we have proof? Of course, we're not talking without proofs. There are proofs for those who can dig the archives of history. You know, if you can dig into the archives of history, you're going to find it, you know, and people don't want you to know those things. King Khosrow, again, don't pay attention to my writing because this is misspelled. It's Khosrow, K-E, is that Khosrow? Yeah, K-E-T-R-O-P-S, not Keros, it's Khosrow. T is in between here. So King Khosrow, this is in Greek mythology, in Greek mythos, fairy tale, fantasy stories. Now, King Khosrow, we're going to find out who this guy is. Mythological king in Greece. During classical times, the Greeks had a widespread myth that it was Khosrow the first, or satraps. Sometimes you read in books, you see these names are all the same. It was Khosrow who founded the city of Athens. This is in Greek mythology. They encoded it there, but we're going to find out who Khosrow is. He made himself the king of Athens. The Greeks reported that he was an Egyptian. Boom, he was an African. They said the founder of Athens and anyone who understands history, who study history or philosophy, you know Athens. Athens is where things was happening in the classical period. It is a city-state bubbling with intellectuals, with statesmen, with government, with rhetorics, with all kinds of learning. It was a vibrant intellectual center in Greece. And in Greek mythology, they encoded it there subliminally that the founder of that city was an African. How can we ignore that? This kind of revelation. Why must they put in their mythologies, if not because they were downloading, they were tapping into their ancestral memory? Because people who probably wrote this did not exist during the time of this mythological king, but they told us that it was Khethraps who founded the city of Athens, and he was an Egyptian. He was an Egyptian. So many classical Greek writers documented that during the reign of Khethraps, the Athenians went by the name Khetropedia. I don't know if I'm saying this right. You can research it yourself and pronounce it. So they went by this name, and this name is, they were answering the name of this king who was the founder of the city of Athens. However, during the reign of another king, Erechtheus, they were renamed Athenians. You see, they encoded in their myth that Africans founded the city-state of Athens. Another mythology that we found in Greek mythology, alluding to the fact that Africans were the founders and Africans were present in the land, was the mythology concerning Belus or Belus. We're going to find out who he is. In Greek mythology, Belus was the son of Poseidon and Libya. Libya attracts our attention because in ancient time, what we call Africa today is new. It was, in antiquities, in hundreds and thousands of years, it wasn't called Africa. When you read many publications and documentations, and histories, Africa was, one of the names of Africa was Libya. You hear names like Alkebulan, you know they're talking of Africa. You hear names like Ethiopia, they are talking of Africa. We hear names like Sudan. In fact, the name Sudan, which is now designated to a particular country, was first used by Arab merchants who were coming from Arabia, from the Middle East, right? When they met Black people who are dark-skinned, they called them Bilad al-Sudan. You know, they called the whole land of the whole Black land, and Bilad al-Sudan, which the Arabic people used to identify Africa, means the Black land. How about Ethiopia? When you read many ancient documents talking about Africa, you see names like Ethiopia. That was also a name given by Greek people. And it used to be a name that they use for all Africans, not just the country today we call Ethiopians. You know, they use the name Ethiopia, I mean burnt face or black face, literally. You know, amazing that Indo-Europeans always, by the name, you come to people's place and rename them. So Ethiopia. So what was the name that Ethiopians answered before, Africans answered before Greek people renamed them Ethiopia. Sometimes those are hard to find in history, but we know that if you read African history in antiquities, you see names like Libya, Ethiopia, Kebulan, um, Bilad al-Sudan. These are the names that are popping up in books and materials when you look into Africa. You're not going to see, like, if you go thousands of years, you're not going to see like anything in Africa. That name is kind of new. So we are drifting, but who is this Belus? He was the king of Egypt. Again, the Greek people are encoding in their mythology again that Belus was the king of Egypt and his mother was named Libya. Remember, Libya is Africa. Libya is Africa. So Belus was the father of, again, Egyptus. He even named one of his sons Egyptus, and the other one is Danaeus. So his brother is Agenor. I don't know if I'm saying this right. Agenor, king of the Phoenician city of Tyre. This is king, not kind. King of the Phoenician city of Tyre. And in the previous video, we told you that Phoenicia was also very central in civilizing Greek people. Phoenicia was central in civilizing Greece. So see, these allusions are something we cannot ignore when we look into how Africa influenced Greece. So this is Poseidon. Remember, Belus, who is the king of Egypt, was the son of Poseidon. And who is Poseidon is the Greek mythology. You know, these mythologies are anthropomorphic creation or anthropomorphism. What is anthropomorphism? Anthropos is Greek language for man. So anthropomorphic description or anthropomorphism has to do with, trying to describe it. Anthropomorphism has to do with attributing the divine or attributes of deity to man. You know, like when you say, and God was walking in the cool of the day in the Garden of Eden. You know, that is anthropomorphism, because you making God look like man, like he has a leg, he has a voice. I was calling Adam, where are you? These are what they call anthropomorphism, because God don't speak. He doesn't have the vocal vibration as we do. He doesn't, because the spirit is not physical. You know, it's only that which is physical that can project voice through the electromagnetic field frequency of vibration. God don't speak like that. So when they say God spoke, and Adam heard him, it was anthropomorphism. They're speaking in symbolism, right? So, as I said, this is Poseidon. And Poseidon is the father of Belus. And who is Poseidon? Is the god of the sea. The god of the sea, of the dark sea. Poseidon is also the god Neptune. This is the god Neptune. You see, they all have this stick with 3 points called trident, right? You see, the god Neptune is the same god as Poseidon, and is identified with the planet Neptune, which is called the mystical realm. The planet Neptune is the mystical realm. So all these things are one thing. Poseidon, the god Poseidon, is also the god Neptune, identified with the planet Neptune. And in the recent cinematographic American movie, the recent movie that I think probably 2 years ago, this movie Aquaman came out. Watch it if you like to watch movie. And it's a very interesting movie. And you have to understand that these people who write this movie, and that is what I told most of these Africans who write movie, got to research. You can't be a good movie maker. That's why you guys are making stupid movies. The same story. It doesn't motivate the children to be scientific. It doesn't. It's the same bullshit they're putting out there, because you cannot write good movie if you're not a good reader. Look at most of the people who produced the greatest movie in the Western society. For example, David Cameron of Canada, Steven Spielberg, one of the best Dutch intelligent movie maker ever. Whenever he makes movie, that movie is coded with esoteric symbolism. People just watch it and get themselves entertained. They don't even know what he's talking about. What about George Lucas, who makes a lot of these sci-fi movies, right? These people are great researchers, great readers. So you can't make a good movie if you don't understand history. And my point is that when you look at this Aquaman is actually the god Neptune. That's what they are telling you in this movie, because it's esoteric, it's occult, literally occult. You see, the same symbol, the same trident that the god Poseidon is holding and the god Neptune is holding, that is the Aquaman is holding. As I told you, God Poseidon is the god of the sea, right? The Aquaman, what is aqua? Aqua is Latin for water, the water man. They are talking of the god Neptune, or the planet Neptune. These are esoteric symbols, esoteric symbols. And if you watch it, and many other movies like the, what do you call it? The movie Wonder Woman, another movie full of esotericism, everything, including the star, the 8-pointed star on the crown. All these things are highly embedded in esotericism, and they're based on ancient mythologies, ancient religious symbols, right? So watch this movie, and when you watch this movie, they're talking of who? This god Poseidon. God Poseidon is also the god Neptune, right? In Sumeria language, in Sumeria culture, this god is identified with Enki. And who is Enki? Lucifer, right? So there's a lot that these people are putting in movie, which, unless you are really deep into research and information and understanding esoteric symbols, they're putting these images out there, but people are just entertaining them. They just think, oh, it's just something we entertain ourselves. No. People who write this are embedded in occultism, deeply occultism, right? That's not a point, it's like we're drifting, but just a thought. So God Poseidon is the god Neptune, identified with the mystical realm, the planet Neptune, and the movie Aquaman is a representation of this god, and is also Lucifer. Ooh, people don't hear that one. Poseidon is Enki, and Enki is Lucifer. So let's say there's a lot hidden that people don't know, and that's how they fuck the mind of people up. Fuck up the mind of people. Now, we see another mythological figure in the mythological narration or narrative of Greek people by the name of Epaphus. And who is Epaphus? Greek mythology had it that Epaphus, aka Apis, was the son of Zeus. This is the Egyptian god Apis. You see, even when the Greek people write their own mythology, they are borrowing concepts from Egypt, right? They're describing this god using, they are writing their mythologies using Egyptian ideas, using Egyptian religious symbolisms. If Egypt was not very important, Africa was not very important to these people, how come they're so obsessed when they write their own mythology, when they tell the story of their origin, they're using ancient African terminologies, because Africa was there from the beginning. The god Apis, if you remember, in the Old Testament where supposedly Moses and Aaron were leading the Israelites out of Egypt through the desert, through the barren wilderness, right? At a point, it seems Moses went up to the mountain. Well, it's just stories. You know, many people's bubble will be busted when you know that this thing didn't really happen as they were describing it. So Moses supposedly went up to the mountain to commune with God and then coming back with the stone tablet, right? And when he was up on the mountain, Aaron started collecting gold earrings and chains and jewelry from the people with which he made the golden calf. When they talk about the golden calf, they are talking about who? The god Happy. That was what they made. You know, the solar. We had a solar disk, the sun disk on her head. That was the thing that Moses supposedly made. So Greek mythology had it that I can't say this word. Epaphus, aka Happy, was the son of Zeus. His mother was Iao. And if you are conversant with studying ancient Egyptian literatures, you're going to say that this name also is an Egyptian word, which the Greek people are encoding in their mythology. Classical Greek reported that Epaphus was the king of Egypt. Again, they reported that Epaphus, this guy, was the king of Egypt, right? Some tradition had it that he was born in Egypt on the River Nile. You see, these people had a way of telling you that everything about us came from Egypt without saying it. They say it, but they kind of hide it, right? They hide it. But then they're telling you, but they're not telling you, sort of. His wife is Memphis. His wife is Memphis. I don't know what I'm trying to say here. But the point is that even the Memphis is also a city in Egypt, right? So everything about this mythological character here has to do with Egyptians. Whatever this guy is was an Egyptian, was an African, right? And the Greek people incorporated him so much into their mythology, even though they are adding in names like Zeus, you know, but we know that the name Happy is Egyptian. The name, this name is Egyptian, and this is Egyptian as well. Libya is also African, you know, African as well. And this name Zeus is where what people call the Godfather. The Godfather, Zeus. Zeus Pater. In fact, the name, the concept Jupiter came from Zeus Pater. Pater means father. Zeus Pater is one who people, the Christian mythology, they continue to regard as God the Father, Zeus Pater, because he resides in the lower heavenly realm and claims to be the creator of all things, right? So, if you go to New York Stock Exchange, you're going to see this bull here. You know, in the modern time, still African imageries continue to circulate all over the place. You know, this particular bull here is representing this god Apis of ancient Africa, ancient Egypt. You know, but if you go to New York Stock Exchange, you see this in front of the building, you're just going to say the piece of art. But again, everything is esoteric symbolism, everything is esotericism. They copy, but you wouldn't know. So in essence, they're still putting the golden calf in front of the New York Exchange, right? So again, look at other things they are stealing from Africa. You see, this is the god Anubis or Ampu. His original name is Ampu. I think it's the Greek people who named him Anubis, right? And is the god of judgment in ancient African mythology. The god of the underworld, or the god of is the judge, Like when everyone has lived here, according to the Egyptian mythology, African mythology, when people leave this physical realm, they have to meet him for judgment. And even though they drew him with the head of a dog or coyote or fox, it doesn't mean, because people so they're worshiping animals. People who say stuff like that are very ignorant. They are using anthropomorphism. They are making allegory. It is an allegory because dogs, if human being has, you cannot, dog has heightened sense of perception, like smell. It's like magnify human smell maybe 500 times. That's how dogs can smell things. They sniff out things. And even they use police dog to sniff out cocaine. People couldn't do that because they have this heightened sense of smell. And what they are trying to do by depicting the idea of their God with dog head, it means that during the time of judgment, he's going to sniff out whatever evil people have done. You cannot escape him. So it does not mean they are worshiping God. But my point here is that the concept of the headdress that judges wear all over the world came from this African image here. That's where they stole it from, you see. They stole it from here. And many people who, it's the European culture, it's the European stuff. They are wearing headdress. Judges are wearing headdress. But it came from the judge, because this is the supreme judge, right? That's why they call him judge as well. It came from here. The headdress they wear in court, if you see judges wear this, it came from these Africans. That's where they stole it from the god Ampu. If you condemn this and if you condemn this as just fabrication, not knowing that they copied this and the same people are judging you when they sit on the throne of judgment. This is the judge, where they copy it, the judge wearing the headdress, right? So we're not going to make this long. I think we will stop here. Please subscribe to my channel, so that each time we put out a video, you will have access to it. I am the Wisdomizer, and this is the primordial wave of consciousness, of reason, of thinking. Thank you for listening, and I will see you next time.